Alrighty, welcome to the second ever episode of Beyond Combat, the show where we bring together mixed martial arts and the outside world. My name is Nick Baldwin, and I'm your host as always. And joining me today on the program is an MMAsucker.com managing editor. He also happens to be a huge NHL hockey fan. He's the co-founder of the website bruinsdiehards.com, and he also hosts a podcast on there as well. And most recently, and the main reason he's here is he just became an intern for the Arizona Coyotes Foundation. We'll learn what that means and much more. It is Nick Godin. Nick, it's a pleasure to have you here. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Great to have you here. I know it's long overdue. We've known each other for a little bit. You, of course, work at MMA Sucka. I'm still in the group chat, as some people might not know, but I don't really do much over there anymore. But I guess they grandfathered me, and I've stuck around. So
yeah,
good.
we won't let anything happen to you. You're with us,
Well,
man.
you guys did kick me one time, but got that
That was not me.
figured out. Yes. So Beyond Combat, for anybody that doesn't know, of course, this is only the second show. First episode 2 weeks ago, we had on the MMAsucker.com founder. I mean, it's kind of strange having two MMA Sucker guys on back to back. Episode 1, episode 2. I feel like now people are just going to expect that. But don't worry, this is not like an MMA Sucker show. We're going to have other people. But Beyond Combat, what my goal is on this show is to not talk about MMA for once, because I feel like when I'm doing a podcast, that's all I ever talk about. The MMA circus before the battle. So this is something new. I feel it's a bit unique, and I think you guys will enjoy this as well. We're sticking to sports on this episode. First episode, we were completely different. But this one, we're sticking to sports. You're also a huge NHL fan. Firstly, Nick, how did you get into hockey? I feel like hockey, unlike MMA, is a sport people like ever since they were super young. Where MMA, you're not going to like it, until you're in your teen years or whatever. You're not going to like it when you're 5 years old. But I feel like hockey is something where you started watching it, at 7 or 8 years old. Was that the case with you, or did you get into it a bit later?
Oh, no, it was definitely when I was young. I mean, we had a team called the Lewiston Maniacs, which was a really popular QMJHL, Quebec Major Junior Hockey League team in Maine. And we had season tickets, and we'd always go to those games with my dad. And I remember one game, it was like 7 fights in 5 minutes in that game. And I'm like, this is kind of my thing. You know what I mean? And, of course, I got in, kind of like you, I got into MMA a lot later. But I definitely liked fighting and hockey, and that sort of crossed path there a little bit. But watched hockey as a fan when I was young, and it sort of goes, and I think you can attest to this as well. You become a fan of something, and then it's like it becomes more of a passion, and then you just want to see how can you climb that ladder and keep going up with something you're so passionate about.
And for anybody listening, feel free to go into the YouTube chat right on your right part of the screen and ask us any questions, either for me or for Nick, and we will be happy to answer them. So yes, do that if you would like. You, of course, as you said, you were just a fan at first, but then as you spoke about, you moved on to starting covering it, doing a podcast, blogging about it. Did you always sort of feel like you might have had a thing for covering sports like that, or was it just you became such a big fan where, like, what made you sort of move into the other part of watching sports, which is, of course, what we're very familiar with, covering them?
I don't know if I can pinpoint that directly. I mean, I think it was just something like I have to use the word passion again. And when you're passionate about something, you really want to start seeing how deep can I get into it. I also like to know a little bit more about, the background, the inside info, stuff like that. So I think, how deep can I get with that and learn more about it? That definitely shot into the sun for me. But I think the moment I realized I wanted to work in sports was I was at the Portland Pirates, who are no longer a team anymore. And I thought I wanted to do videography, which changed drastically. And I went and I saw this guy, and I've always been this person, right? I went to a Trump rally. I'm not a Trump guy, but I always go to all the rallies. And I said to the guy there, one of the security guards, hey, let me take a picture with the podium, please. So I jumped over the barricade and took a picture. So I've always been the guy to try to sneak through and get backstage and stuff like that. So I spoke to the videographer and got his contact information, and he ended up picking me up, and we went to some games, and I got to shadow him. Realized it wasn't my thing, but I looked over and I saw the broadcast booth. I saw the press box. I'm like, that's kind of where I want to be. So I ended up a few years later, maybe 3 years later, I got press credentials to write for the Portland Pirates. And, that would give me locker room access, interview players, stuff like that. And I realized, yeah, that's kind of what I like to do. And then I saw the guy tweeting the games. I'm like, oh, this is kind of badass. This guy's tweeting the games for a job. That's sweet. And I learned more about that. And now I got connections in the NHL. The Vegas Golden Knights guy who is Emmy Award winning, Dan Maraza, one of the most popular digital media guys right now. And I'm good friends with him as well. So it's really building up that network. And that's how I sort of got into it.
I feel like, though, to jump from being a fan, even if you're a hardcore fan, you watch every hockey game or you watch every MMA fight or every UFC card, what have you, I feel like, though, to go from that sort of big fan to covering the sport, there you have to have something. You can't, even though you said it was more passion than anything, I feel like, going by my personal experiences, I feel like everybody who covers a sport always in the back of their mind, or we're always good at doing those. You can't just become a big baseball fan and have no talent as far as writing or talking or anything goes and start doing that. I mean, for me, I was always an okay writer for my age, say in grade 3, writing little responses into a book in English class. I was always decent at doing those sort of things. I was always decent at writing. The talking part is completely out of left field. I'm surprised that I ever got into podcasting, but I feel like you do always need to sort of be good at doing these things from the beginning. You can't just be a big fan and jump into it, I feel.
No, I think you're absolutely right. No, I definitely think you're right. And I think, I don't want to act like I'm something, super, super special here. And, but I think that there are certain people that can do that and other people can't. You can't be a diehard fan of something and then have that translate into being one of the better journalists or podcasters or broadcasters. Ultimately, I think it's really two things. You have to have a tremendous amount of confidence, and I think, for example, just to attest to both of us, look what we're doing right now. We're doing this show, and it's a great show, and we're putting ourselves in front of people. So you have to have confidence to be able to put yourself in those positions, and you got to know people, and that correlates with confidence perfectly. You got to be able to put yourself in front of people, network with those people, meet them, and then that will, translate into getting yourself in the industry.
Now let's talk about Bruins Diehards, which is a website you co-founded. When did that happen? When did you actually make that transition to covering the sport of hockey? And was your website the first place, and I guess maybe the only place you've covered hockey for, or did you start somewhere else and then move to your own site to build that? How did that work?
Well, I actually, I've written for so many websites, my God. I think my first writing position was with sportsrants.com, which I believe is still going pretty good right now. I want to say they're linked with Forbes, but that could be wrong. And I just wrote about the Bruins. I wrote about hockey in general. Then I jumped to a website called Too Many Men on the Site with Fansided, which I think is Puck Pros now. And then my next writing position was with Last Word on Sports, which has merged since with MMA Sucka. And that was, I want to say, a couple of years ago. And I covered the Bruins, and that's when I covered the Portland Pirates as a credentialed writer as well. And then I want to say in like 2013, that's when I co-found Bruins Diehards. Now, I used to use a Twitter account called We Are Bruins Fans. And the guy that ran Bruins Diehards had to go to college, and he said he can't run it anymore. So he said, I like the way you run that account. I want to give you this one. And I'm like, what? Like, this thing's got like 15,000 followers. You just want to give it to me? I just see money bags. I'm like, this is sweet. Let's do it. So I did it. And then I got into college. I'm going to graduate this year, hopefully. And I was like, man, this is great, but I'm busy. It's hard to do this all with one person. And so I brought that same guy back on. His name's Mark Arbino. He's the original founder, and then he brought me on. So I'm co-founder. And we realized the potential. We realized it went from 0 followers to 10,000 followers to 15 to 26,000 now. And we're like, man, we got to keep growing with it. So we created the podcast, which has just been awesome, man. We've had people from 98.5 The Sports Hub, WEEI Boston, a lot of Bruins writers, and we're hoping to get some Bruins players on this year. But no, it's been a fun journey. And I mean, we just finished off, I want to say last week and the week before, we did 2 sponsorships with Dunkin' Donuts. So it's nice to finally be taken seriously.
Well, it seems like your podcast is getting, it has grown to something really big. Did you expect that? Just because I know I saw on your Facebook you were looking for sponsors, and you mentioned, hey, 1 million impressions a month to 6 million. You're getting a lot of views, and you're doing it out of a professional studio. You're sort of, doing really well. Did you expect that growth, or has that been surprising?
It's been surprising. I want to be able to say, yeah, I knew it was going to happen, but I think you can probably attest to this too. I mean, I used to want to be a sports writer, period. I didn't want to do anything in the communications field. And I was always told by people that's such a competitive field. You got to understand that there's a large percentage you're probably going to fail. So when you're told that, you start thinking, most of the things that I'm doing, am I wasting my time? But that's the mentality that makes it so you do fail. Is like, am I wasting my time, right? So I just kept with it. I think it was Twitter just started doing analytics, I want to say, over the past few years. So when I was running Bruins Diehards, I didn't necessarily get the impressions. I didn't really know how many people we were reaching. And when I started checking it out, I'm like, oh my God, this single tweet's reaching 40,000 people. Are you kidding me? So that's when Mark and I said we should probably start putting our names on this. And because we used to be, I don't know if I said this, nobody used to know who ran Bruins Diehards.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons it became so popular, is because it was an alias account nobody knew, and we just started within the last year or two putting our names on everything. So no, I didn't necessarily see it being as big as it is, but we're gonna stick with it, man. I'm pumped that it's at this point.
So right now you cover the Bruins for your website, and you also cover MMA for MMA Soccer. Why not cover hockey and focus on hockey 100%? Just because I feel like just going by the success you've already had, I feel like, and you could correct me, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if you were to do this completely full time, you might have better luck going the route of the NHL.
Right. I would definitely do that if I was sticking to sports writing, but that's not really what I'm trying to do. I'm mostly trying to get in the communications department of an NHL team, or even a MMA promotion. It's a lot of behind the scenes. I've been connected with so many people in both organizations, and I've had interviews with the UFC, and I just haven't got it. I was working on Bellator, but decided when I kept getting calls back from NHL teams, I'm like, this is probably the best route to go right now with my background in hockey. But I love sports. I want to work in sports, and I understand that if my dream is to work for the UFC or the Boston Bruins in the communications department, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in 10 years. There's a path that you have to go on. And if that means what I'm doing right now, moving across the country to work with the Arizona Coyotes, and then after this, maybe I move over to Minnesota and work with the Wild, you just got to keep climbing that ladder, and you got to be willing to go anywhere, So if I was going to just do journalism, I would be doing exactly what you're saying right now. I'd probably drop everything and focus on that one thing that I want to do. But this is more of side work. This is networking with more people as well. The people you get to meet as a writer, it's incredible. And it's fun too. I got to be honest. It's just fun.
Right. So it's interesting how right now you're covering MMA and hockey, but you're also pursuing at the same time sort of a communications career. When you were told by that person that journalism, it's tough to get into, good luck, maybe, and that's when you started to consider, okay, let's not do this and more take the route of PR and communications. Do you feel like you're 100% all in, or is there any way you can go back to trying to become a journalist?
Well, I think they're both relative, and that's one of the things that I learned, is that there's almost communications is like the big umbrella,
Sure.
And there's all these different facets that's underneath it. And journalism is one of those things. So as long as I stick with communications and PR, I can still do broadcasting or journalism. I mean, the opportunities are just countless,
Sure. I just gotta go to the YouTube chat for a second. MMA Saka, I would imagine that would be Jeremy Brand, our good friend. He says, "Hey, shut up, Nick. Don't take him away from MMA." Well, I guess you're one of the more valued members of the MMA Saka roster right now, so I guess that's where Jeremy's coming from. Thank you for the comment. Even though you're criticizing me, Jeremy, we do appreciate it. Okay, so what I found most interesting is you recently secured an internship with the Arizona Coyotes Foundation. So what exactly are you doing? It's, to be exact, it's a Arizona Coyotes Game Day Foundation internship, correct?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So that means basically I'm working every single game night or game day, whether it's matinee. And one of my jobs is, so every single game, we have a new sponsor for the 50-50. It's a charity. And they come in, and we've all been trained on how to use the technology. There's a ton of technology to do with 50-50. So we're trained on how to use that stuff. We have to teach the charities, this is what you do during the games. If they have any issues, we go, we find them, we fix it. And we also have a charity corner that is posted up. I want to say it's I think it's 2. In gate 2, where fans, Arizona Coyotes fans, come over. We sell auctions, we answer questions. So it's really a community relations / game production type thing going on, and making sure things flow nicely with the foundation during game days.
How did this come together? I know I remember when you first told the Soccer group chat, including myself, that you had gotten this, and I saw your Facebook post. It seemed like it was completely sort of out of the blue. Like it came up really quick.
Yeah, it did. Quicker than I feel is realistic. Somehow it happened. I had just gotten off the phone, so I think I had an interview with I think it was the Tampa Bay Lightning a month before, and I didn't get that internship. Then I had an interview with the UFC, and this was all when I was working with the Travis Mills Foundation, which is, I have to just say, it's incredible what the Travis Mills Foundation is doing right now for military veterans. And my boss, Brandy Kane, she has incredible connections. So she sort of helped me, get into this networking thing. But I got a call with the UFC. I didn't get that internship, and I was feeling bummed, man. That was like 5 in a row where I was like, nah, man, and I think it was location. I'm from Maine, which is like almost, Canada, not quite Winnipeg, but it's up there by New Brunswick and Fredericton, which I have family in. So I really did feel like my location was one of the reasons I wasn't getting these opportunities. And so I just threw one Hail Mary attempt at the Arizona Coyotes, and I got a call the next day who said, can we do an interview? I go, sure. And we did a quick interview, and she goes, all right, we need you here by Friday. I go, that's in 5 days. And she's like, can you do it? And I go, sure, let's do it. So that just goes to attest to the fact that you have to be willing to go anywhere. And I did, and I'm loving it, man. I mean, Maine, where I'm from Maine. Like 50% of the state is without power right now, and I'm sitting out here about to go to the pool. So I'm feeling pretty good about my choice.
You got to love the weather too, I would imagine.
It is nice. I mean, it's finally getting into the mid 80s right now, but it was 100 last week. So definitely, as you know, I mean, it's we get snow, we get winter in Maine, but Arizona, I'm going to be skipping the winter. I can't complain about that.
Yep, I would agree. Jeremy Brand on the YouTube chat, he says, my question for Nick, the better looking one, since he's in the States. Jeremy, I'm not in the States, but I'll assume you're talking to Godin here. He says, since he's in the States, but he loves hockey so much, has he ever had poutine? So I guess you're like an honorary Canadian, but you haven't
had it. Never had it.
Oh, there you go, Jeremy.
It doesn't sound that good. I got to be honest with you.
This is maybe even more surprising. I've never had poutine either.
Oh wow!
And
okay,
I'm a real Canadian, so that's even worse. So it's super popular. I feel like it would be good because look at mashed potatoes and gravy. That's fantastic.
Yeah, you're right.
But in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinions, but I'm waiting till I have no plans to go to Quebec. But I've said, okay, I've made it 17 years without consuming one bite of poutine. I might as well just wait for the best poutine. So when I find my way to Quebec somehow, some way, for whatever, that's when I'm gonna have my first poutine. But for now, No poutine for me. Okay, so you are, of course, the intern or an intern for the Coyotes Foundation right now. How does this lead, or how can it lead to a main role, a permanent role, like with their communications department? Do you feel like what are the steps necessary to take? Do you just need to perform well in this internship? What sort of do you need to do, and what are your chances of this turning into a full-time job with them?
The likelihood of it turning into a full-time job with the Coyotes is slim. Uh, I mean, there's not a whole lot of money flowing through this organization right now. So, and I know that this department, the foundation, has had some cuts recently. So I just don't see it happening. But that wasn't really the plan to begin with. I have a whole plan where I'm just going to keep getting internships with a bunch of teams while I'm in college, and then keep making connections, which will help me lead to a job in the future. But I think one of the hardest things to do in the sports industry is getting a damn sports team on your resume to begin with. I mean, it's so difficult, man. I mean, and that's why I keep saying, and I'll say it 3 times now, you have to be willing to go anywhere, because if your favorite team's the Bruins, it's likely they're not going to take you. They're not looking for fans, okay? They're looking for people who are serious about the industry and that are willing to travel. And that I just understood that from the beginning. And that's why if I had spent my entire time trying to work on the Bruins, I would never be in this position. But I've reached out to all these different teams, and I got lucky and I got one. And that's not to say that people aren't qualified candidates to work for the team they want to work with. It's just saying that it's just not realistic. You know, it's one of those right place at the right time things with sports. And once you get a team on your resume, you're golden. You know, you're in the industry. You just have to deliver now.
Well, I got to imagine, sort of to add on to that point, that now that you have the Coyotes on your resume, going for your second internship or a full-time job down the road or whatever sort of you do afterwards, I got to imagine you have a way better chance of getting something else, and just your chances of securing another internship, as you said, probably would be a lot easier now that you have this experience.
Yeah, and it's I don't want to say I already have one secured, but I got an idea that there's one that can happen. Uh, I've got it's with the NHL league office in New York. I have some contacts there, and it made it pretty difficult for me to make my decision to come to Arizona, because the minute because one of the things that you got to do is you got to thank the people that have helped you. So all these people, I've had calls with so many professionals in the industry late at night just to learn from them. And when I got this Coyotes internship, I emailed all of them to let them know, thank you for your advice. Here I am. And a lady at the NHL league office emailed me back, and she said, are you stuck up on this Coyotes internship? Because we need some interns here at the league office in New York. And I'm like, oh, I'm leaving in 5 days for Arizona. You couldn't have let me know that earlier, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And I'm excited to see what happens after this.
What's the latest on that? Did you just say, hey, it's too late? I mean, I would, but it's too late. I'm going down to Arizona and then see what happens next year. Is that sort of?
That's basically what happened. Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's interesting how you have been a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and here you are, as you said, they're not always looking for fans, and sometimes that's not even the best candidate, so to speak. But here you are, working for the Coyotes Foundation. How weird is it still covering the Bruins, but then having an internship with a different team? Is that weird at all?
It is kind of weird. I mean, I've had for the longest time the Bruins in my bio, and there's a picture, the background picture on my Twitter and on Facebook, and to just clear that all out, because I originally thought it was going to be a conflict of interest.
Right.
But I spoke to my boss, and she was like, "You can keep doing the podcast, you can keep doing the website. That's fine with us." And I'm not sure if that's conventional. You know, if I was working for the New York Rangers, I don't think they'd let me still do the show that I do. But I'm really happy and thankful that the Coyotes will let me still do it. And ultimately, I think they understand that the chances of me working for the Coyotes full time is unlikely, and doing the Bruins diehards. I mean, one, it's becoming a source of income for me, and it's expensive to live out here, so that helps. But I mean, two, it's one of those things that I have to continue to do to reach my future goals, and I'm thankful that they do understand that, and I can keep doing it.
And so when the Bruins do play the Coyotes, I don't keep up with the NHL every day, but have they played yet? And if they haven't, Have they?
They did. Yeah, they played. The Bruins came to town, I want to say week 2, and I ended up working that night. And that was hell, man. I mean, all the staff was making fun of me. I mean, the Bruins won, so I had the last laugh at the end of the day. But I'll stand there, and they'll be like, "Hey, Nick, where'd you pack your car?" And I'm like, Jesus, guys, I'm from Maine, which is similar, but not quite that Boston. So, but no, it was good.
So they're cool with it, though. They don't, it's not sort of you have to keep it on the side, keep it secret. Like they know that you're a Bruins fan, and that's not going to change.
Yeah, no, and at the same time, ultimately, I'll say I'm a hockey fan.
Sure.
And there's only a few teams that I don't like, and that one of them includes the Montreal Canadiens. And I gotta be honest with you, Baldwin. I'm not a big fan of the Jets. I gotta be honest. But,
come on,
dude, what is it with your fans about booing the star player of every single team? I just don't get it. But that's
I don't go to enough games or watch enough games to notice that or to even know that happened. But yeah, I mean, typically we're a good crowd.
Yeah.
Winnipeg in general, great sports city. We just don't have enough. I mean, look at the UFC, sold out.
Yeah.
Jets games always sold out, or great cheers, all of that. So
that's true.
Yeah, don't you can't crap on Winnipeg too much. Just a little bit,
just a little bit. But I forget what you asked. To be honest with you.
I don't think I asked anything, but internship, this one with the Coyotes, so it goes to the end of this season, yes?
Yep.
Next year?
Just the end of the season.
Okay, and so then after that, I know we've sort of covered it. Again, is it just look for another internship? Do you see if they are willing to bring you on full-time? Do you reach back out to the NHL head office in New York? What do you have a plan for come April or May?
I think I'll have to sit down and figure that out. I mean, one of the biggest questions I have is, am I going to go back to school? Am I going to try to get my master's degree, or is it worth it? So, if I was in a situation where I was told, Nick, you have an internship lined up with the NHL, or you can go get your graduate degree, I'm definitely going to the NHL. That's more important. And I'm in school right now. I'm doing online classes with my school back at home. And one of the hardest things is doing those damn classes while I know that they're mostly like fillers. You know what I mean? I'm just paying money for these bullshit classes that will just get me my degree at the end of the day. But the important thing to do is actually go out there, right, in the real world, get the experience in the industry that you want to work for. And that's been difficult for me. So I'm starting to wonder, do I go for my master's, or do I try to get experience in the field some more? So that's a decision to come. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet.
What exactly are you in school for right now?
Communications.
And so I guess that's sort of, as you said, you've moved on from journalism. Where are you? So you said you're last year?
Yep. Yeah, I'm a senior right now. Yep.
Okay. And as you said, you still don't know whether you will go get your master's. It really depends on sort of what happens from here.
Yeah. And I mean, I know a master's degree would be beneficial to have, but is it worth the money, one? And two, again, if I were to get another opportunity that's more important than a master's degree, I'll take that.
I know you talked about this already, but for one more time, can you sort of cover what your day-to-day is when you go to the game? What exactly are you doing again?
Yeah. So basically, I'll walk in, and what we have to do is we have to get everything set up. So that means getting all the technology set up, unplugging them from the chargers, test printing every single printer and the technology that is compatible with the printer to make sure that you can sell tickets. We fill up aprons with printer paper and some money so that, as change when people actually buy tickets. We test the system to make sure that tickets are going through with the system. And then we also set up the charity corner. And we enter games about 3 hours early, right? So puck drop could be about 7 o'clock, and we're there at like 3 or 4.
Right.
So it's a lot of work, and that will take you about 3 hours. If I'm working 50-50 that night, so not actually selling tickets, but if I'm managing 50-50, I also have to make sure that I'm posted up at gate 7 so that I can take some of the charity members and the people volunteering to the 50-50 room, get them set up, let them know what they got to do. After that, it's basically you sit there, and this is crazy. I mean, the pot that we're getting for 50-50 isn't as much as like Edmonton, which got 85,000 the other day. We're getting maybe, I don't know, 13,000, but we're counting all that money by hand. So I'll sit there, and all these 50-50 people will take their money and they'll throw it at me, and I'm like,
Wow.
oh my God. Like this, first of all, this is disgusting. I'm going to get a disease or something with all this money.
Sure.
But
So
I've
during the
enjoyed.
game, when you're working 50-50 managing it, that's what you're doing the whole game pretty much.
Essentially, yeah. Yeah, and working with fans as well. If the fans have any questions, directing them to where to
Okay.
go. So a lot of it can be community relations, and we do a lot of events that are, not during the game. So we help plan for those events as well.
And when you're not working 50-50, what are you more able to just sit back and relax a little bit, or is there something else you have to do?
Yeah, I am sitting back and relaxing, but I hate it. I don't like, that sounds dumb, but I just don't like it, man. I'm here for a reason. I'm here to gain experience. I'm here to network with people. So the end of, or actually mid this month, I'm going to be going to a NASCAR track, and I'm volunteering at a NASCAR event. I got a meeting with the president of the Arizona High School Hockey Association just to talk about what I can do while I'm down here. So it's those little things too that, make these experiences worth it.
And why is the internship officially with the foundation of the hockey team? Like, why is it not like an Arizona Coyotes internship? Why is the Arizona Coyotes Foundation internship?
It's basically because that's the department that's running it.
Okay, so it's just basically wording, essentially.
Right, it is just wording, yeah.
And so, of course, what you're doing right now doesn't totally sound like, I mean, it's kind of interesting just because as a communications, if you're doing PR for the Coyotes or what have you, I mean, say you secure a full-time job with them down the road and you're doing PR for them. This isn't what you'd be doing. Is it sort of strange getting experience for communications doing that, working 50-50, setting up certain things in the arena, testing tickets, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, it's definitely different, and it's not necessarily what I want to do per se. But I mean, I come from a foundation background, having worked with the Travis Mills Foundation, which I think helped me get this internship. And ultimately, my first internship with the pro sports team wasn't necessarily the position as much as it was to get it on my resume. I love it. I love the goal. I mean, the ultimate goal is to help enhance the community, and we do a lot of community work as well, and that's something I'm passionate about as well. But ultimately, I understand it's not a PR position. That would probably be my next ask, is to work at some PR, maybe social media, and I am actually working with the foundation social media as well. So I went into the internship knowing that it wasn't PR. But I sort of was like, hey, you got a Twitter account? Can I check it out? You know what I mean? And trying to sneak my way into the communication side of it as well.
And so you are running some of the Coyotes Twitter?
Yeah, we're working on it. Ultimately, we're trying to figure out a way. I'm working on a plan. So sort of like an outreach plan. How can we reach the most amount of people? And we also have this new way to buy 50-50 tickets if you live in Arizona online. So you don't have to be attending the game. So how can we use the social media to maximize sales and 50-50 digital sales? So that's kind of like a project I'm working on right now.
What are your thoughts on the Golden Knights Twitter account?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And, I spoke to Dan, who runs it, beforehand, and I was like, what do you want to do with it? And he kind of told me, and he's kicking ass. So I'm happy for him.
Would you like to take a similar approach?
See, that depends on the team that you're running. Every single. I mean, if you were, do you know what is that burger place? Let's just say Jimmy Rockets. Do you have Jimmy Rockets in Canada?
I don't. Were you going to say In-N-Out maybe? I don't
know. No, we can use In-N-Out as an example too.
It doesn't matter.
When you walk into In-N-Out, there's a certain. It has its own certain feel. You know what I mean? It's got its own brand, and that brand needs to translate from your personal experience walking into that establishment. That needs to translate online as well. It has to be consistent. So if you go to a Golden Knights game, the way you feel, the way the mascot acts, the way the pregame ceremonies are, has to translate into the Twitter account. And they're doing that good. It's fun, it's Vegas, it's alive. You know what I mean? That doesn't necessarily correlate to how the Boston Bruins are going to run their Twitter account. You know what I mean? So the best people running social media are the people that can read the city, can read the the feel, the brand, and then translate that into a certain identity using social media.
So then what's your read on Arizona and the Coyotes?
I think they're still trying to figure it out. It's very unconventional, which can be used to their benefit. It's kind of like when I went to the Florida Panthers arena in Sunrise for the draft, Connor McDavid's draft, actually. It was so cool, man. They had a food court inside that you could take your food outside and eat. You don't get that in Boston. I'm sure you don't get that in Winnipeg during the hockey season. You don't want to stay outside, man. It's too cold and there's snow on you. So those little things can benefit you when you're marketing your team. But although the Coyotes have been around for 20 years, I think they're still trying to figure out what their specific brand is.
And when you talked about how this internship wasn't PR related, but your next one, if you were to do another one, you would want that. So did you have the choice of requesting to do an internship even for this one, communications related, but decided not to just because you'd have a better chance, A, to get into this one, and B, just because this was your first one, you didn't want to jump right in and wanted to do sort of maybe what was required the most or what have you? I mean, was that
Right.
Is that sort of the situation? Could you have jumped right into the PR internship if you thought that was a good move?
I definitely would have if they would have taken me. It's not necessarily that I applied for it. It was never offered.
Okay.
I mean, these positions are specific in what they're asking for. So, I mean, if they're listing out internships, they don't just say, we have plenty of internships, apply and we'll let you know what fits. It's mostly, this is the internship, this is what we need. That was the only one that they had. And really, it was one of the only ones that an NHL team had at the moment. So I just went for it. And I know that, to try to, coincide to what you said a little bit, I do know that this experience does help me ask for a PR internship for my next one. And it makes me a more suitable candidate for it.
No, I'm not a PR master, but my sort of opinion, just talking to PR people, like I have relationships with communications people, et cetera, as you do, of course, and vice versa. I feel like to go make it big in either, you can't really do both forever. And it's almost like a conflict. I mean, even though they're the same field, I feel like you can't be a PR person and a journalist at the same time and do it full time. Do you agree? And if so, when does the journalism side of what you're doing right now, the Bruins, MMA, when does that end, or can you always do it on the side, do you feel?
It would ultimately depend on the position. I definitely agree with what you're saying. And I think for one reason, I think most people that work in PR are just loaded with work and they won't even be able to sustain working PR and have a broadcasting or journalism career on the side. I think that I'll keep doing this until I get like an official job. If I'm working with the Bruins, of course, I can't do Bruins diehards. That's a big conflict of interest. I can't represent the team because I'm an official employee. So I'd have to close down on that. And even if I was working as a PR associate or, PR manager, I definitely wouldn't be able to run Bruins diehards for another team. So that stuff will drop off, and what will I do with it? I don't know, man. It's kind of, you ever use that website that like you can type in the at and like it tells you how much your account's worth?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Not in a
Bruins
long
diehards
time.
could be making some money in the future. So would I want to sell it? I don't know. We'll see how many people would want to take it, but I'm going to do it for as long as I can. And, once I get an official position, I graduate school, I got a house and I'm working for an organization. That's when I'll probably stop.
And the reason I sort of say you can't really be a PR person and a journalist at the same time is because it usually would be a conflict of interest. Like if I remain covering MMA, say for Bloody Elbow or whoever, it doesn't matter. And then I opened up my own MMA agency, started doing PR and managing, say, 10 UFC fighters. I can't do both because as an MMA journalist, there would be the potential for me to cover my own fighters. And clearly, huge conflict. although I wonder if you will always be able to stay doing MMA stuff on the side just because it's a different sport. So it's like, even though you're doing PR for in the hockey industry, maybe you can stick to journalism in the MMA industry. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I definitely think that's possible. I think that's, it's one of the reasons why I like doing both. And, vice versa, if I were to work full time in the MMA industry, I wouldn't see a problem continuing to broadcast hockey games as well. I don't think that that's a conflict of interest. So I think that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Last question for you before I let you go. Are you enjoying the internship as of right now? I mean, is it overall? I know it's something you feel like you maybe have to do to go where you want, but ultimately, has it been a good experience so far? I know it's pretty new still.
No, it's been great, man. It's really everything I want it to be, given the situation that I'm in. I think one of the hardest things for me is the fact that I got so much free time. Like, I haven't worked in a week because they've been playing out on the East Coast, so they're away. So I really haven't had a game to work, and I'm trying to find some time to. I'm trying to work. So I actually applied to Planet Fitness, and one of the reasons I applied to Planet Fitness is because I don't want to spend. I don't want to pay for a gym membership. So what do? I work for them and I get a free one. You know what I mean? And that will bring me some income. I mean, my last check with the Coyotes was like $53. That's just because they only had one game that week. You know what I mean? So I got to do these supplementing things to make sure that I am making some money and keeping myself busy out here. But the ticket prices, oh, dude, 4 rows from the glass, I got a ticket for $50. How much would that be in Winnipeg? Probably 100.
Yeah, we're more. I mean, I haven't looked at hockey prices in a while, and I'm sure they've gone down since the Jets only made the playoffs, and ever since they've been back one time and lost all games, so it didn't help. But I still think they're selling out pretty much every game. But that is interesting. That's something I never thought about. The fact that when they're away, when the Coyotes are playing away, whether they're in Boston or Winnipeg or Vancouver, wherever, you're doing nothing. I mean, did you wish that they still were able to assign you something, even if you were doing it remotely, even if you were looking at their Twitter once in a while from your house or from, wherever? Do you wish that was an option? I think we
I mean, you know what I mean?
You froze for a little bit. I didn't hear what you said. Nick? Well, I do not know if this is me or if it is Nick. I'm looking at the live stream and it appears to be Nick. Okay, Nick Godin just messaged me on Facebook with my laptop just shut down. ... So I didn't really have anything else to ask him other than what I just did. Let's see. I'm gonna try and find out if he's gonna try and hop back on. I don't know if he can. Let's see, he's typing. Oh, he said it is dead. His phone is dead. Laptop. Well, I think he's going to try something. I do not know. It sounds like that will be the case. My apologies. I guess this is why some people don't do live shows. But it's been great having Nick on. It was interesting going from last week, having Jeremy Brand on the program and talking about completely unrelated stuff, where at least here we did talk about, we mentioned MMA. I know I said we weren't going to, but when you're talking about covering sports, I found it interesting, though, talking about another sport. He's, of course, huge into hockey, even more so than MMA. He's covered it for a long time, been a hockey fan all his life. And now he's jumping into a different side of it, communications, and working for an NHL team in the future. It's good stuff. It's been good having Nick on, and let's see. So it doesn't look like we're gonna get Nick Godin back here. He says it's making me download an app. I don't know how long you want to stay going for. So either I didn't want to stay going for much longer at all. I just had that last question for him, which by now oh wow, look at it! It's Nick Godin himself. I was just saying to myself, Nick Godin's not going to be back, but here you are. Do you remember? So you're on your phone. Your laptop died. Is it just dead, or charge wise, or is it completely toast?
I got a pretty bad laptop, man. It's I have to like lay it on its side to charge it and keep it propped up against the couch. Oh, wow. So I think it just probably failed on me there. But yeah, I mean, look, we got to be innovative in this industry, right?
Of course. Do you recall what I had just asked you? Like the last question as you died, not you, but your laptop. I don't remember. It was something. Oh, it was working remotely when there's a home or when there's an away game, you're doing nothing.
Right.
When there's an away game and I see your beard, that I don't know, the camera is right up against your face.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me at all?
Well, I have to put it up. It's
I see. Okay,
like a phone call, so it's coming out of that little thing.
I see. Okay, so you were talking, or I was asking you about when there's an away game, you're actually doing nothing. That's something I didn't actually realize. Do you wish that when there was an away game that you would be able to, or you had the responsibility of maybe hopping on, their social media, or is there anything you could have done? Do you wish that? I guess since you're an intern, they wouldn't fly you to their away games, but do you wish you could have been doing at least something when they're away?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think ultimately I knew what I was signing up for when I took the internship, so I kind of have to deal with the position I'm in. But yeah, it's difficult just sitting here inside, and I'm happy to get it on my resume. I'm happy to be here working with the Coyotes. Have I ever really sat down and not worked for a week? Well, not since I was in high school. So it's been sort of a transformation of something I have to get used to. But I'm working on it right now. I've got a few volunteer opportunities lined up with the NASCAR track down the road, working with the Arizona High School Hockey Association. So we'll see what happens. I do need something to bring in some consistent income, hence the part-time job at Planet Fitness. Hopefully that happens. But
you need to get a new laptop
for now. It's keeping myself busy.
And you need a new laptop too. That's what you need to use some of your money for too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely need a new laptop.
Well, anyways, Nick, it's been great having you here. It's great chatting with you. I know no one else knows this, I guess, but I asked you to guest co-host the MMA Circus a few months back, and then days after I asked you, I was sick and canceled and just didn't ask you since. So great having you here on episode 2 of Beyond Combat. Before we get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you on social media, where they can find your MMA coverage, where they can find your Boston Bruins coverage, and if there's anything else you got to plug related to Coyotes or anything else, the floor is yours.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Well, you can find me personally, my personal Twitter account at Flying Orr. That's FLYINGORR, like Bobby Orr. I know your Jets have never had as good of a player as Bobby Orr. I hate to call you out here. I got him, man. I got him. You can find Bruins Diehards at bruinsdiehards.com or at Bruins Diehards on Twitter. We're also on Libsyn, SoundCloud. We're on WilliamsBroadcasting.net, just added to iHeartRadio. So things are going good right there. And, of course, you can find a lot of my stuff on MMAsoccer.com. We're doing good things over there as well. So thank you very much, Nick. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has been for sure. You guys can find me on social media on Twitter at Nick Baldwin MMA. You can find my MMA writing over at bloodyelbow.com. You can find my other podcasts. I have 2 others. They're both on this YouTube channel, so you may be familiar with them. The MMA Circus, episode 135 goes down in just an hour and a half. I am having guest co-host Jed Michoud on the program. My co-host, Andrew Lawrence, is busy tonight, not able to do the show. So the MMA Circus will be previewing the St. Pierre Bisbee card, UFC 217, and the other title fights, as well as looking back to last weekend's UFC Fight Night 119, Brunson versus Machida, and Colby Covington's controversial stuff after that fight, his win over Damian Maia. Before the battle, we will be previewing the UFC 217 Bisbee versus St. Pierre card in depth. That will be also with Jed Michoud, but also Wesley Riddle from MMAsucker.com. We will be doing that show tomorrow night. Temporary, or right now, it sounds like we'll be doing that at 10 p.m. Eastern time, although Wes, as per usual, has yet to get back to me on that. And so check out my Twitter, and we'll keep you updated on when we're doing Before the Battle. But for now, thank you guys for watching. We certainly appreciate you turning to episode 2 of Beyond Combat. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Talk to you guys later, and make sure to tune in to the MMA Circus later tonight.